Okay, y'all, I've been using the 2021 MacBook Pro for a little bit over a week and some change, so I could finally draw some conclusions and get my thoughts out on what I think about the new MacBook Pro. Now, this one is the base version. It is the 14-inch with no spec upgrades. I just decided to go with the base model. Overall, I can definitely say that this is one of the best laptops ever. It's not perfect, but let's find out why. One of the things that I like starting off with is the design. And this MacBook Pro, it's not necessarily my favorite design MacBook. I feel like it's like a little bit of a stepping back. It's more heavier and sturdier and thicker, whereas before it was slimmer and it looked more sleek. So if we're talking about design preference, I do prefer the design of the previous MacBooks, but I could definitely say it's like not an ugly looking computer. It's just a little bit thicker for my liking. The color that I got is the space gray version. I do like this color, but sometimes I'm like, how is this not silver? So sometimes it's hard to tell, but it is the space gray model, and generally speaking, I do like the color of it. Now, one of the reasons why Apple had to change the design is because they're adding more ports, and I don't want to go into like what ports they have. I'm pretty sure everybody knows. I just want to talk about the ports that matter to me. And first of all, the SD card slot is a huge addition to me, and it makes me think that buying this computer is worth it alone. Even if you had like a more recent M1 Mac, the SD card slot is super essential. Not only that, but the HDMI out port, it's also very useful for people that are on the go. If you have to do presentations, you want to plug into somebody's projector or computer, then this definitely is a welcome upgrade. But of course, we do have other ports on it, and yes, we do have more USB-C ports. Another big port that I was super excited about, and I love having it on this thing, is the MagSafe port. And this MagSafe port is very sturdy. I feel like you could trip over and it's not gonna fall out. So it's very, very sturdy, and I like the way that it connects. But the main reason why I like this MagSafe port is basically because you don't necessarily need to use up any of the other available ports as you did with the previous M1 Macs. So with those, you only have like 2 Thunderbolt ports, and if you're charging, then that only leaves 1 available. If you're somebody that needs to connect a lot of things, this is super useful because you can have 3 available and still charge, and that's mad useful. But yeah, overall, the design, it's not the best, but I do like what Apple did with the new computer. A big change with this new MacBook is the notch. Everybody went crazy over the notch. Some people like it, some people hate it. Personally speaking, after using this thing for more than a week, I don't notice it. It goes away in a lot of apps, especially when you're doing full screen. It's basically giving us more space, so I have no complaints about it. I don't really think it looks that ugly, to be honest, but yeah, I'm just saying. And more on the display. This display is actually the best display I've ever had on a computer. Seriously, it looks that good. It gets really bright with up to 1600 peak brightness and 1000 nits sustained brightness. The thing about the nits though is, although it does get bright, Apple doesn't necessarily use 1000 nits all the time. For the most part, it really just kicks in during HDR. But other than that, it stays at around 500 nits, but it still looks crisp, clear, everything looks vibrant. As a photographer, someone that edits videos and wants color accuracy, this is a good display. It's a liquid retina XDR display, and it just looks booming. It's really good. And if you're a photographer, videographer, no question, you're gonna want to upgrade to this computer. Another addition to the display is the 120 Hertz, which, to be completely honest, I don't notice 90% of the time. I really can't tell if it's working or not. It's pro motion, so Apple doesn't use it 100% of the time. It's dynamic, so depending on what you're using, 120 Hertz will flicker and change. So for example, if you're watching a movie, it's gonna go down to 24 Hertz. So if you use this to watch a lot of movies and do light work, you're probably not gonna take advantage of it. But if you're like gaming, which I don't know why you would on a MacBook, but if you are gaming or editing videos in Final Cut, you can just definitely see that it's a lot more smoother than it ever was in the past. So yeah, the display gets a big thumbs up for me. I really think that the display on the new MacBook looks really good, really crisp. I want to focus on the keyboard for a little bit. This is one of the best keyboards that I've ever used on a computer. It gives like the ThinkPad a run for its money. So Apple basically upgraded the keyboard from last year's M1 Pro, removed the touch bar, and the keys feel good. Typing out scripts or any like long notes or anything like that that I have to do for these videos or clients, it feels like a good typing experience. And it's not like a mechanical keyboard by any stretch of imagination, but it's still probably like the next best thing. Now, they did remove the touch bar, which I hated. I hated the touch bar, and they added a full function key roll, which is way better. The touch bar, which was like a gimmick, basically used to like freeze out on me all the time in the 2019 MacBook Pro, and I'd have to restart the computer. So that was so annoying, so I'm very glad that they just removed it. And it's not a big jump for me because I had the M1 MacBook Air last year and I was able to work, so it's not really an L here. I'm upgrading and it feels good. Now the speakers on the new MacBook Pro, again, you see the theme here. This is like the best speakers I've ever heard on a computer. And I should say I never listened to the 16-inch version speaker, so that's probably the real best, but this sounds so good. It's very loud, it's bright, it sounds very full, so I'd recommend that if you do any like music production, you might want to pick up these. You know, if you don't have any better speakers around, this will be a good substitute for you because it's so clear and it sounds good. I'm not going to do a speaker test. I feel like it's better for you to go out to the Apple Store and test it in person to really get a feel for how dynamic this thing sounds. Apple added a 1080p camera to the new MacBook Pro. I would have preferred to see center stage on it for if you're doing any conference calls and just moving around, but for the most part it is a good upgrade to it. It's not like 4K or anything. Definitely a step up from any MacBook of the past, and it's definitely going to make you look a lot better in those conference calls, especially the ones where you're only wearing a top and probably your boxers or something like that. Don't lie, we all do it. Oh wait, I didn't even talk about speed. Look, it's really fast. We all know that. The last M1 chip was really fast. Now, typically speaking, I edit 4K videos with lots of titles, lots of layers and things like that in Final Cut Pro, and this thing is able to handle it. There's basically no lag. And the biggest benefit is that I can edit it in full quality, whereas before I used to have to scale down the quality just to run through the timeline. But this one, no lag, full quality. Anything I could throw at it, this thing is gonna handle it. I also use it to edit photos in Lightroom, and yeah, basically same deal. Importing photos quick, exporting photos quick too. I'm just impressed overall. This is the computer for the people that do a lot of heavy tasks, and it's not going to stutter. I'm very, very surprised, especially because I was in love with my M1 MacBook Air because that thing was a beast, even though it was on the Air line. And yeah, this thing is even better than any of the M1 chips, so wow. Now, moving on to the battery, this is one of the things that I don't necessarily like about it, but at the same time, I can understand why it's not the best. So first of all, I can say I probably get like 3 to 4 hours of editing with full brightness in Final Cut. But if I'm not using it for any intensive tasks, just going on YouTube, responding to emails or browsing the web, then this thing's gonna last maybe 10 hours. So it's not necessarily like the 17 hours that Apple announced. I don't get that much. Maybe a casual user will get that much. This is not the computer that you want to get for all day battery life. And again, understood, it's a Pro device, so it makes total sense. Now, time to give my conclusion of this new MacBook Pro. As you can tell from this video, I really like this MacBook Pro. It's the best computer I've ever used. This has been a worthy upgrade for me in terms of my workflow. The question that you have to ask at home is this thing worth it? In Canada, this thing costs $2,499. In US, it's $1,099. That is a lot of money, especially if you just bought a MacBook Pro M1 or the M1 Air, and they both do exactly what you needed to do. In my case, it was, but for you, it might not be. So I gotta ask you, is it worth it? You can let me know down in the comments below. I hope to address any lingering questions that you guys have that I might not have addressed in this video. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to stay tuned. I got more content on the new MacBook Pro. I'm gonna see you guys in the next one. Peace.